Welcome to the Cheating Wife Stories channel. Alexander Wilson gripped his coffee mug, staring at the family photos adorning his home office wall. The frames held moments of what he once believed were pure happiness. His wedding day, the twins' birth, family vacations. At 48, he built exactly the life he'd planned. Or so he thought. "Dad, have you seen my calculus textbook?" Olivia's voice carried from upstairs, pulling him from his thoughts. "Check the kitchen table," he called back, his voice steady despite the turmoil brewing inside him. The familiar morning chaos of the Wilson household played out around him. Olivia and Daniel rushing to prepare for school. Natalie orchestrating their departure with practiced efficiency. Alexander watched his wife move through the kitchen, her light brown hair catching the morning sun. She wore her usual teacher's attire, a modest blouse and skirt that suited her role as an elementary school art instructor. After 25 years of marriage, he still caught other men admiring her. The thought now turned his stomach. "You're quiet this morning," Natalie said, placing a hand on his shoulder. He resisted the urge to shrug it off. "Just thinking about Charlotte's engagement party this weekend," he replied, his tone neutral. "Jonathan called last night to confirm he's coming." Natalie's hand tightened slightly on his shoulder before relaxing. "That's wonderful. The whole family together. It'll be perfect for Charlotte." Perfect. The word echoed in Alexander's mind like a cruel mockery. He thought back to their own beginning. The high school cheerleader who needed help with math, the quiet boy who'd fallen hard for her smile. He tutored her through trigonometry and calculus, and somewhere between derivatives and integrals, they fell in love. Or so he believed. "Mom, Daniel's hogging the bathroom again." Olivia's complaint interrupted his dark thoughts. "5 minutes, we're running late." Natalie called up the stairs. She turned to Alexander, her smile warm, but something flickering in her eyes. "Don't forget I have that teachers' conference this weekend. I'll have to leave the party early." Alexander nodded, his face a mask of understanding. "Of course. Jonathan mentioned he has some property viewings in that area too." Funny coincidence. He watched her closely, noting the almost imperceptible pause in her movements as she packed lunches for the twins. Natalie recovered quickly, her laugh light, and practiced. "Your brother never stops working, does he?" The twins thundered down the stairs, 17 years of energy packed into athletic frames. Daniel's dark hair needed a trim, falling into eyes that Alexander had always thought mirrored his own. Now he wondered how he'd missed Jonathan's features in his son's face. "Dad, can I take the car tonight? Practice is running late," Daniel asked, grabbing an apple from the fruit bowl. "Take mine," Alexander replied, his decision immediate. "I'll need to check something on your car's brake lines anyway." The tracker he'd installed last week needed adjusting. Olivia hugged him goodbye, her perfume the same brand Natalie wore. "Don't forget to sign my permission slip for the field trip," she reminded him, waving the paper in front of his face. Alexander signed it automatically, his teacher's instincts noting the official letterhead. He'd taught physics at the local high school in Kentworth for 20 years, building a reputation for tough but fair classes. His students respected him, even the ones who struggled. He demanded honesty in his classroom. "No cheating, no excuses. I'll pick up dinner on my way home," Natalie said, gathering her things. "Any requests?" "Whatever you decide is fine," Alexander replied, standing to kiss her cheek, a habit of 25 years he couldn't break yet. Her skin was warm under his lips, and he wondered if Jonathan had kissed her there too. The house felt quiet after they left. Alexander waited 10 minutes before pulling out his phone. "Tom, they're gone. Come over." Tom Spencer arrived 15 minutes later, his security firm's unmarked car parked discreetly down the street. At 32, Tom had grown from the struggling student Alexander once mentored into a sharp-eyed professional with a talent for uncovering secrets. "I got the hotel footage," Tom said without preamble, setting his laptop on Alexander's desk. "You sure you want to see this?" Alexander's jaw tightened. "Show me." The security camera footage was grainy but clear enough. Natalie entering the Harper Inn at 7:43 p.m., Jonathan following 5 minutes later, both leaving at 11:27 p.m. The timestamp matched the charge on their joint credit card, a rumor Natalie had claimed was for a teacher's workshop. "There's more," Tom said quietly. "I found a pattern going back years. Different hotels, but always the same setup. They're careful, but not careful enough." Alexander's hands didn't shake as he reviewed the evidence. His voice remained steady as he asked, "How far back?" Tom hesitated. "The earliest confirmed meeting I found was 18 years ago. Right around the time Natalie got pregnant with the twins," Alexander finished. The words tasted like ash in his mouth. He stood, moving to the window. The neighborhood was quiet, expensive homes spaced perfectly apart, manicured lawns creating an illusion of order. Jonathan had helped them buy this house, offering a family discount on the property, another act of generosity from his successful older brother. Alexander's hands curled into fists. "There's something else?" he asked. Tom shifted uncomfortably. "The surveillance you requested on Martin Reed, Charlotte's fiancé. 2 days ago, the Willow Inn off Route 7. He was there for 45 minutes. A new image appeared on the screen. Martin's car in the parking lot, and Natalie's car 3 spaces away." The room spun for a moment before Alexander's iron control reasserted itself. His voice, when it came, was icy. "My wife is sleeping with my brother and my sister's fiancé." "Alexander," Tom started, concern evident. "No." Alexander cut him off. "I need everything. Every meeting, call, text. I want to know who else knows. My mother's been acting strangely. Check her too. I want to understand exactly how deep this betrayal goes." Tom nodded slowly. "It'll take time to build a complete picture. Take the time. Do it right. Our 25th anniversary is in 3 months. I want to know everything by then." After Tom left, Alexander sat at his desk, staring at the family photos. Natalie's smile, Jonathan's arm around his shoulder at last year's Christmas party, the twins beaming at their 16th birthday celebration. His perfect family. His perfect lie. He reached for the nearest frame, his and Natalie's wedding photo. They looked young, happy, untouchable by time or betrayal. With deliberate care, he opened the back of the frame and removed the picture. Then, with precise movements, he tore it into tiny pieces. When Natalie came home that evening with Chinese takeout, Alexander greeted her with a kiss and asked about her day. He listened to her stories about difficult students and faculty politics. He watched her laugh with the twins over dinner, noting how her phone stayed face down beside her plate. Later, when she was asleep beside him, he lay awake cataloging every suspicious business trip, unexplained absence, every time Jonathan had been unnecessarily present in their lives. The rage inside him crystallized into something cold, hard, and patient. They had taken everything from him. His marriage, his children, his trust. He would take everything from them in return. But first, he needed proof. Irrefutable, devastating proof that would destroy not just their reputations, but their entire worlds. Alexander Wilson had lived his life believing in honesty, hard work, and family. Now he would show them exactly what happened when those beliefs were betrayed. The manila envelope sat unopened on Tom Spencer's desk, the weight of its contents pressing against the clean white surface. He glanced at Alexander, who stood by the window of the small investigative office, his posture rigid with controlled fury. "Before you open it," Tom said, "I need you to understand something. What's in there, it's going to change everything. Not just your marriage, but your whole family." Alexander turned, his eyes hard. "They changed everything the moment they decided to lie to me." "Open it." Tom pulled out the first set of documents. Financial records spanning 2 decades, credit card statements, hotel receipts, bank transfers carefully disguised as business expenses. Jonathan's company had been paying for more than just family vacations. Your brother's been maintaining a separate account, Tom explained, spreading the papers across his desk. Regular deposits, always under reporting thresholds. Natalie's name is on it, but hidden under her maiden name. Alexander picked up a statement, studying the transactions. When did it start? The account was opened 19 years ago, Tom said quietly, a month before Natalie discovered she was pregnant. The paper crumpled in Alexander's grip. Show me the rest. Tom hesitated before pulling out his laptop. I managed to recover deleted texts from Natalie's old phone backups. She wasn't as careful in the early years. Hundreds of messages spanned years. Secret meetings arranged in code, expressions of love and desire. Discussions about the twins. Alexander read them all, his face growing harder with each revelation. Jonathan helped Daniel get that summer internship last year, Alexander said, pointing to one exchange. He told me he put in a good word with a colleague. He was arranging it with Natalie the whole time. There's more, Tom said, pulling up surveillance photos. These are from the past 3 months. The images showed Natalie and Jonathan together, entering hotels, meeting in parking lots, sharing intimate moments they thought were hidden from view. But it was the newer photos that made Alexander's blood run cold. When did this start? He demanded, staring at a shot of Natalie and Martin emerging from a motel room. As far as I can tell, about 6 months ago, right around the time Martin started dating Charlotte, Tom said. They're usually quick, lunch breaks or early evenings. He tells Charlotte he's doing hospital rounds. Alexander's laugh was bitter. My wife is sleeping with my brother and my sister's fiancé. How poetically destructive of her. Alexander, Tom said carefully, there's something else you need to see. He pulled out another envelope, this one marked with a medical laboratory's logo. The DNA tests, Alexander said flatly. Tom nodded. You were right about wanting them done. The twins, they're not yours. Alexander had suspected for months. Hearing it confirmed still felt like a physical blow. 18 years of memories. Teaching them to ride bikes, helping with homework, attending every game and recital. All built on a lie. Who else knows? He asked, voice deadly calm. Your mother, Marion, Tom confirmed, showing him more surveillance photos. She's been meeting with Natalie and Jonathan regularly, usually after you've expressed suspicion. She's been running interference, creating alibis. Alexander absorbed this new betrayal with frightening stillness. My own mother, helping them hide this from me. There's a pattern to their meetings. Tom continued, professional but reluctant. Your mother usually meets with Natalie first, then Jonathan separately. They're careful about public appearances, but they slip occasionally. The evidence continued to mount. Phone records showing late-night calls between Marion and Natalie. Security footage of Jonathan's car parked near Marion's house on days when Natalie was supposedly at teaching conferences. Bank statements showing Marion's regular deposits into the secret account. They've built quite a network, Alexander observed, his tone conversational but his eyes glacial. All working together to maintain their perfect lie. Tom watched Alexander with growing concern. He'd seen that look in cases where betrayal ran deep enough to turn love into something darker. What are you planning? Alexander gathered the evidence carefully, organizing it with the precision he once brought to physics equations. We have 3 months until the anniversary party. I want everything documented, every connection mapped, every lie exposed. Leave no stone unturned, even if what we find destroys your family completely. They destroyed my family, Alexander corrected him. I'm just going to make sure everyone knows exactly how and why it fell apart. Over the next weeks, Alexander maintained his routine. He taught his classes, attended family dinners, played the role of devoted husband and father, but every moment was an opportunity for gathering proof. He installed tracking devices in Natalie's car, monitoring her movements. He set up cameras in their home office, capturing her late-night phone calls with Jonathan. He recorded conversations at family gatherings, noting subtle interactions between the conspirators. Marion's weekly dinners became an exercise in observation. Alexander watched his mother fuss over Natalie, watched her secret smiles when Jonathan stopped by unexpectedly. He recorded it all, building his case. "You seem distracted lately," Natalie mentioned one evening as they prepared for bed. "Is everything okay?" Alexander met her concerned gaze in the mirror. "Just thinking about the anniversary party. 25 years is a long time to be married. The best years of my life," she said, wrapping her arms around him from behind. He patted her hand, noting how she checked her phone the moment she thought he wasn't looking. Later, he watched through the cameras as she slipped downstairs to call Jonathan. "I'm worried about him," she whispered into the phone. "He's been acting strange." "You're being paranoid." Jonathan's voice came through clearly. Alexander's never suspected anything before. Why would he start now? Alexander rewound the conversation 3 times, memorizing their tone, their certainty, their deception. Then he called Tom. "I want to accelerate the surveillance on Martin," he instructed. "If he's meeting Natalie, I want to know when, where, and for how long. And I want to know if Charlotte has any idea what's happening." The investigation expanded, revealing layers of betrayal even Alexander hadn't anticipated. Martin wasn't just meeting Natalie. He was confiding in her about Charlotte, sharing intimate details of their relationship. "He tells Natalie everything," Tom reported, disgust evident in his voice, then uses that information to manipulate Charlotte's trust. "It's calculated." Alexander added the info to his growing file. Every revelation strengthened his resolve, turning rage into something focused and cold. They had taken his truth, piece by piece, year by year. He would take everything from them in return. As the anniversary party approached, Alexander fine-tuned his plan. The venue was booked, the same place they'd held their wedding reception. The guest list was carefully curated to include everyone who needed to witness the grand unveiling. "Are you sure about this?" Tom asked as they finalized the video presentation that would expose every lie. Alexander stared at the footage. Natalie and Jonathan entering hotels, Martin leaving the motel, Marion orchestrating their deceptions. "They've had 18 years of their truth. It's time for mine." The investigation revealed more than infidelity. It exposed the rotting core of what he'd once believed was a perfect family. Now, as he prepared to tear it all down, Alexander felt nothing but cold satisfaction. They had taught him an important lesson. Love was weakness, but truth was power, and he would wield it without mercy. Alexander Wilson sat across from Tom Spencer in the private room of Lakeshore Manor, studying the layout diagrams spread across the table. 3 months of meticulous planning led to this moment. "The projector screen will be positioned here," Tom said, pointing to the spot behind the main table. "High resolution, 6 feet tall. Nobody will miss a single detail." Alexander nodded, making a note on his tablet. "Audio system. Top of the line. I've arranged for speakers throughout the ballroom. The sound quality is crystal clear. They'll hear each betrayal in perfect fidelity." The venue manager knocked and entered with a sample place setting. Fine china rimmed in silver, crystal stemware that caught the light. Alexander examined each piece. "Natalie wants peonies for the centerpieces," he mentioned casually. "Her favorite flower. Jonathan used to bring them to her after their hotel meetings." Tom glanced at him. "You've thought of everything." "Almost." Alexander pulled out a USB drive. "The video presentation needs your final touch. I want transitions between each segment. Natalie with Jonathan, Natalie with Martin, my mother's involvement. Build the story piece by piece." They spent hours reviewing the footage. Security cameras capturing intimate embraces in hotel corridors, hidden microphones recording whispered declarations of love and conspiracy, text messages revealing years of coordinated deception. "The DNA test results are especially brutal," Tom said quietly, sliding an envelope across the table. Alexander opened it slowly, though he knew what it would say. The scientific confirmation of his brother's betrayal was laid out in percentages and probability factors. Jonathan's paternity of the twins was undeniable. Add it to the presentation, Alexander instructed, right after the hotel footage. I want everyone to understand the full scope of this. The guest list required careful consideration. Alexander wanted witnesses to the destruction, colleagues, friends, neighbors who had unknowingly played parts in their elaborate lies. Natalie's invited her entire department from the elementary school, he noted, reviewing RSVPs. All those teachers who covered for her phony conferences over the years. They should see the truth. Jonathan's bringing business associates. Tom added, including investors from that new development project he's so proud of. Alexander's smile was razor sharp. Perfect. They should understand exactly who they're dealing with. Preparations continued with ruthless efficiency. Alexander orchestrated every detail, while maintaining the facade of a devoted husband, planning a romantic celebration. The string quartet is confirmed, Natalie told him over dinner one evening. They'll play our wedding song. Alexander reached across the table to squeeze her hand. You thought of everything, darling. He watched her smile, noting how she checked her phone under the table. Another message from Jonathan. No doubt. The twins were excited about the celebration, eager to help. Alexander observed them with new eyes, seeing Jonathan's features in Daniel's profile, his mannerisms in Olivia's gestures. Dad, can I invite Sarah? Olivia asked, referring to her best friend. She loves looking at your old wedding photos. Of course, Alexander replied. The more witnesses, the better. He caught himself. To our happiness, I mean. Tom called with daily updates. The video editing is complete. I've added background music, classical pieces Natalie and Jonathan danced to at family events over the years. Nice touch, Alexander approved. What about the legal documents? All prepared. Divorce papers, custody arrangements. Though that's moot now, we know about paternity. And documentation for the financial separations. The lawyers will be on standby. Alexander had already moved most of their joint assets into protected accounts. Natalie's spending habits provided perfect cover. She never questioned why money was being transferred, too busy with her own secrets. A week before the party, Alexander visited his mother. Marion was arranging flowers in her kitchen, humming contentedly. The anniversary party is coming together beautifully, she said. Natalie is so excited. It reminds me of your wedding day. Alexander watched her practice deception, remembering surveillance footage of her warning Natalie about his suspicions. You've always supported our marriage, haven't you, Mother? Of course, darling. Nothing matters more than family. He almost laughed at the irony. No, nothing matters more than truth. The final days were a symphony of details. Alexander selected his suit with care. Charcoal gray, perfectly tailored. The same one he'd worn to Jonathan's last charity gala, where he'd watched his brother and wife dance, thinking his doubts were paranoia. Natalie grew more excited as the day approached. She bought a silver dress that cost more than a month's salary, charged to the credit card Alexander would soon cancel. 25 years, she mused, modeling the dress in their bedroom. Can you believe it? Alexander looked at her reflection in the mirror, remembering surveillance photos of her wearing similar outfits for Jonathan. It's unbelievable, he agreed. The night before the party, he met with Tom one last time. Once this starts, there's no going back, Tom warned. Are you sure you want to destroy everything? Alexander's response was cold. They destroyed everything the moment they chose to lie. I'm just making sure everyone sees it. The Lakeshore Manor glowed with elegant lighting as guests arrived for the 25th anniversary celebration of Alexander and Natalie Wilson. Silver balloons and white roses decorated the grand entrance, where a photographer captured smiling faces and warm embraces. Natalie stood in the reception line, radiant in her silver dress, accepting congratulations with practiced charm. Alexander watched her performance, noting how her smile brightened when Jonathan arrived. Little brother. Jonathan embraced him enthusiastically. 25 years. You've proved me wrong. I didn't think you'd get Natalie to say yes in the first place. Alexander returned the embrace, feeling the USB drive in his pocket press against his chest. You've always been there for us, haven't you, Jonathan? The ballroom filled with guests, teachers from both their schools, Jonathan's business associates, family friends who had witnessed their supposed perfect lives for years. Marian worked the room like the society matron she was, bragging about her flawless family. Charlotte arrived with Martin, their fingers intertwined. Alexander observed them entering, remembering the motel surveillance footage. Martin's other hand held his phone, the same one he used to coordinate meetings with Natalie. Everything's ready, Tom murmured, passing behind Alexander with a champagne flute. The projector was connected, the audio system tested, the evidence prepared to detonate their carefully constructed world. Dinner was served, expensive wines paired with gourmet courses. Alexander watched Natalie laugh at Jonathan's jokes, saw Martin squeeze Charlotte's hand while texting under the table. Marian beamed at her children, proud matriarch preserving a fiction of family unity. The string quartet played familiar melodies, their wedding song, anniversary waltzes, family celebration tunes. Each note marked time until the revelation. Finally, Alexander stood for his anniversary toast. The room quieted, all eyes on him. Natalie smiled up at him. Love and deceit mingled in her expression. 25 years ago, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the perfect acoustics. I married the woman I thought was my perfect match. Our story seemed like destiny. The cheerleader and the math tutor falling in love over algebra equations. Appreciative chuckles rippled through the crowd. Jonathan raised his glass in salute, his other hand resting possessively on the back of Natalie's chair. Over the years, we built what appeared to be the perfect life. A beautiful home, wonderful children, successful careers. We were blessed with supportive family members who were always there for us. Marian dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Charlotte leaned against Martin, unaware his free hand was texting beneath the table. But appearance and reality often differ. Alexander continued, pressing a button on his remote. The lights dimmed as the projector hummed to life. Let me show you what 25 years of marriage really looks like. The screen filled with crystal-clear surveillance footage. Natalie and Jonathan entering the Harper Inn, emerging hours later with mussed clothing. The timestamp matched their anniversary date from 3 years ago. Guests filled the room. Natalie's champagne flute slipped from her fingers, shattering on the table. Jonathan's face drained of color as the footage continued. Years of hotel meetings, secret rendezvous, intimate moments they thought were hidden. But wait, Alexander's voice cut through the shocked murmurs. There's more to our perfect family story. The video shifted to text messages in large format, showing Natalie and Jonathan's secret communications, discussing the twins' paternity, coordinating their deception, mocking Alexander's trust. Mother. Alexander turned to Marian, whose face had gone rigid. Perhaps you'd like to explain these next clips. Security footage showed Marian meeting separately with Natalie and Jonathan, helping coordinate alibis, warning them about Alexander's suspicions, aiding in the conspiracy. And Martin. Alexander's tone could have frozen fire. Charlotte, you might want to pay attention to this part. Motel footage played. Natalie and Martin's secret meetings, their intimate betrayals captured in merciless detail. The room erupted in chaos. Charlotte stumbled back from Martin, her engagement ring catching the light as she raised her hands in horror. Natalie tried to stand but collapsed into her chair. Jonathan looked wildly around, searching for an escape. The DNA test results are particularly interesting, Alexander continued, his voice cutting through the pandemonium. Medical documents appeared on screen, showing Jonathan's paternity of the twins. Olivia and Daniel sat frozen, their world imploding as they realized their uncle was their father. I've had 17 years to build college funds for my children, Alexander announced. But since they aren't actually mine, I've transferred those funds to more deserving recipients. Jonathan can pay for his own kids' education. Jonathan surged to his feet. Alexander, let me explain. Explain what? Alexander's voice cracked like a whip. How you slept with my wife. How you watched me raise your children. How you played the devoted brother while destroying my life. Natalie reached for him, mascara streaking her cheeks. Alexander, please. Don't touch me. He stepped back, pulling an envelope from his jacket. These are divorce papers. You'll find them quite thorough. Tom has copies for everyone involved. Tom moved through the stunned crowd, handing out documents with professional efficiency. Divorce papers for Natalie, evidence packets for Jonathan's investors, documentation of Martin's infidelity for Charlotte's lawyer. The truth, Alexander told the silent, gaping room, is that this perfect family was built on lies. My wife betrayed me with my brother, and my sister's fiancé. My mother helped hide their deception. My children aren't mine. The twins were sobbing, clinging to each other as their reality crumbled. Marion tried to approach them, but she froze at Alexander's glacial stare. I've spent 25 years living a lie, he concluded. Consider this my anniversary gift to all of you, the gift of truth. The ballroom erupted into pandemonium as the full impact of Alexander's revelation hit the gathered crowd. Natalie stumbled to her feet, silver dress stained with spilled champagne, perfect makeup streaked with tears. Alexander, you don't understand, she pleaded, reaching for him. Jonathan and I. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Which part wasn't supposed to happen? Alexander's voice cut through her excuses. The affair with my brother, or sleeping with our daughter's fiancé. Charlotte's anguished cry drew attention to where she stood confronting Martin. How could you with her? With my brother's wife. Martin tried to catch her arm. Charlotte, baby, it didn't mean anything. Don't touch me. Charlotte recoiled, ripping off her engagement ring and throwing it at him. Were you laughing at me the whole time? Jonathan attempted to restore order, ever the businessman trying to control the situation. Everyone, please, let's discuss this privately. Privately. Alexander let out a laugh devoid of humor. Like the private meetings you had with my wife, or the private conversations about your children. My twins? Daniel stood up abruptly, his chair crashing backward. You're my father. All this time. You're actually my father. Olivia remained seated, staring at the DNA results still displayed on the screen. Mom, is it true? Uncle Jonathan is. Natalie moved toward them, but they both threw back. Please, let me explain. We were young. It was complicated. Complicated. Alexander's voice silenced the room again. Let me simplify it for them. Their mother slept with their uncle while married to their father. Their grandmother helped hide the truth. The man who raised them isn't their father. Marion tried to intervene. Alexander, you're hurting the children. Think about what you're doing to this family. Family. Alexander turned on his mother. You helped them lie to me for 18 years. You watched me raise Jonathan's children, knowing the truth the entire time. What kind of mother does that to her son? On screen, the evidence kept playing, revealing years of deception. Jonathan's business associates whispered among themselves, already making calls to their lawyers. The luxury development he bragged about at family gatherings was toast. You can't do this, Jonathan shouted into his phone after the fact. We have contracts. Morality clauses. The investor's voice crackled over the speaker. We can't be associated with someone who maintained a long-term affair with his brother's wife. The optics are toxic. One by one, Jonathan's carefully cultivated business relationships crumbled. Meanwhile, tips about Martin's behavior reached the hospital board. Parents withdrew their children from his pediatric practice. Nurses demanded transfers. The tableaus of destruction played out one after another, all orchestrated by Alexander's calm, precise hand. His mother, Marion, faced social exile in Kentworth. Garden clubs, church committees, charity boards quietly dropped her name. Natalie lost her teaching position amid the scandal. Jonathan had to sell off properties at a loss. Martin lost most of his patience and the respect of his colleagues. Charlotte broke off the engagement, devastated by betrayal. The twins struggled the most. 17 years of believing one thing about their lives, only to discover it was all a lie. They moved in with Marian temporarily, but that only made them feel more trapped by her deceptions. Neither parent offered them comfort they could trust. Alexander's revenge succeeded beyond his expectations. Each blow was calculated, each consequence designed to strip away the comfortable lies they'd spun for years. Once it was done, he left Kentworth behind. He and Charlotte moved to Oak Bridge, far from the stifling atmosphere of Longville region suburbs. There, Alexander accepted a teaching position at Greenvale Academy, overlooking Lake Harrington and the broad expanse of Parkside Sound. Charlotte opened a small bookstore that soon became a beloved community fixture. 10 years passed. By 58, Alexander had become department head at Greenvale Academy. His hair had grayed at the temples, but he retained the same calm authority that once ruled his Connecticut classroom. Charlotte's bookstore expanded to 3 locations, each featuring an inviting space that celebrated stories and honesty. Olivia and Daniel, in time, made their way to the West Coast, both attending Brighton University and Coleridge College before advancing to graduate schools. Daniel pursued psychology, focusing on family trauma and betrayal. Olivia became an environmental lawyer, championing truth in the face of corporate deception. They reached out to their father slowly, piece by piece, building a new kind of trust. Marian spent her final years in a private nursing facility, paid for, anonymously, by Alexander. Jonathan ended up in Clayton, selling modest homes, his grand ambitions destroyed. Natalie relocated to Palmview, remarrying a retired accountant who knew nothing of her past. Martin re-established a small practice in Westwood, stripped of his former prestige. None had any real relationship with Olivia or Daniel. Alexander's life in Oak Bridge, however, was rooted in authenticity. He never remarried, but shared a quiet companionship with Tom, who expanded his investigative business into a full-fledged security consultancy. They held family dinners with Charlotte, Olivia, and Daniel every few weeks, honest gatherings devoid of deception. "Any regrets?" Tom asked him one evening as they sat overlooking Parkside Sound. Alexander looked at a recent photograph. Olivia in her lawyer's office, Daniel presenting his research on parental deception at Ravenwood University, Charlotte in her bookstore, Tom at his successful firm. A new family, built on truth rather than lies. They chose their path. Alexander said finally, "We chose ours. Truth has a price, but it's always worth paying." He closed the album, containing reminders of all he'd exposed. The perfect facade was gone, burned to ash with every lie that once held it up, and in its place stood a life shaped by honesty and hard-won peace.